Last but not least, Eric Liu has over 8 years of experience in residential design, construction, and project management. Ever since ADU law was first introduced in 2017, Eric has become a true believer of the ADU concept. Over those years, he's helped over 40 clients with ADU projects and has done multiple ADUs for his own homes. He earned his architectural degree at UC Berkeley and has followed his career goal of creating a true one-stop shop service and experience for his clients. Eric started as a residential focused design company, 3E Design in 2016, got his Reuter license in 2017, and started his residential construction company, Puzzle Construction, in 2018. Any other thoughts, Laura?
Yeah. So I just want to share that Eric and I were start to work together years ago. During the REO time, we managed a project for our client. So Eric lead the architect team. There's a group of people under him. Well, he's very humble about 40 ADU projects. Over the years, he done many projects. And my husband, well, we doing small projects, but occasionally he have to bug and call Eric and for this continued support all these years. And I think to Hugh that with my real estate transactions, there's a situation going on. I call him and he sent, a different engineer and help me and get things through. Thank you to Tony Hutchinson, brings Scott Reuter to share the valuable opinions and education. Thank you.
All right. So without further ado, Eric Liu, you have the floor to start off, okay?
All right. Thank you. Let me... Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Eric with 3E Design. And today I want to give you some insight I have on ADUs as a homeowner, a designer, and a construction manager. I will go over some ADU information with this presentation and show a few examples of different types of ADU project I have done in the past, and will be answering some of your questions in the Q&A session. So ADU stands for Accessory Dwelling Unit. ADU are an affordable, effective option for adding much needed housing in California. It is a way for the state of California to increase the unit density on a single family and a multi-family lots. Here are some of the potential usage and benefits of ADUs: additional income, home office, caregiver housing, aging parents, guest house, backyard pool house, and you can even use for an act of kindness, providing free or affordable housing for a local teacher or even a homeless person. So there are three main types of ADUs. They are the single family ADU, the multi-family ADU, and the junior ADU. So for a single family ADU, they allow you to do a conversion of the existing space, such as your attic space, your main floor, or your basement. And you can do a detached ADU, which is considered as a new construction or a new construction of additions. So for junior ADU, this is for your existing space, interior space conversion of some portions of your single family homes, but you're limited to 500 square feet. I will talk more about JADU later on. And for multifamily, pretty much the same as a single family. They allow you to do a conversion of space inside the building and allow you to build up to 2 detached units in your backyard. Note that change of occupancy regulations will kick in if you're proposing more than 4 units. The maximum size for ADU is 1,200 square feet. However, the total floor area of an ADU cannot exceed 50% of the existing floor area, or 1,200 square feet, whichever is less. For example, if your home is only 1,000 square feet, then you are only allowed to build up to 500 square feet. There are 2 exceptions to the 50% size limitation. A studio or 1-bedroom unit might be 850 square feet. B, units with 2 bedrooms or more might be 1,000 square feet. Only one ADU allowed for single family home. However, you can add one JADU, junior ADU, alongside with the ADU. So what is a JADU? Um, for JADU, they only allow for interior conversion of an existing home, and you can only build up to a maximum size of 500 square feet with an efficient kitchen. An interior connection is required. Exterior entrance is also required. On top of everything, owner occupancy is required. The owner must live in either the single family unit or the JADU unit. And the owner of the property must record deed restriction when they apply for a JADU. So here are the benefits of ADU. Normally for a single family home, you're only allowed to build up to 40% or 50% of your lot size. ADU is not under this requirement. And for the setback, normally for a single family home, you have to give 15 feet or 20 feet rear setback. For ADU, they only require 4 feet for the side and the rear setback. So which you can maximize the usage of your backyard space. Utilities, ADUs are very flexible on utilities. They allow you to tap into existing utilities such as electrical, water, and gas and sewer. Or if you want, you're allowed to split up the meters. So it will be easier for the long run if you're renting out the units. Fire sprinklers are required for the new construction and additions over 1,000 square feet in California. However, for ADUs, if the existing home does not have a fire sprinkler system, the new ADU does not need to install a fire sprinkler system. This can save a lot of money and time because a new fire sprinkler system will run you about $10,000 for design and build fee, and oftentimes they do require an upgrade of your existing water meter, which can cost up to $20,000. When it comes to fees, ADU require a much lower permit fee versus if you're building a regular second unit. So timeline-wise, there's two parts to the timeline. From design to permit, usually it takes about 2 to 3 months. And for the construction, it takes about 2 to 6 months. That's depending on what the complexity of your project. And from my experience, it usually takes less than 8 months to complete the project. There are 3 main factors for the cost of the ADU. The first one is pre-construction. You're looking at design and permit fee costs. And then during the construction, you're looking at construction costs. On top of that, you do have the finished material costs, the landscape and the hardscaping costs. And after the construction, adding an ADU will increase the property tax. The main home's property tax will not be reassessed. They will only add the value of your ADU construction values. The last thing is it might not be as easy as it appears to be. There are quite a few things that ADU might require. First, and the most expensive one is the fire-rated assemblies. Let's say if you're converting an existing space connected to existing home to an ADU, you are required to provide 1 hour fire separation, which might require you to remove the existing sheetrock and also add the sound insulation. And also when you propose a detached ADU in the back, where you want to max out the setback to 4 feet, you are required to have a fire-rated wall. That's for the new ADU. And then when the construction involves removing existing structures, you are required to apply for a J permit in California, which is for the air quality control. And this might result in asbestos and lead testing report, which will definitely drive up the construction cost of your ADU. And utilities, many of the existing single-family homes, the existing utility does not have the capacity for the added ADU. So oftentimes you're triggered to upgrade your electrical meter and water meter. And the next thing is the site condition. Let's say you're situated in a sloped lot or a lot with a high water table. Oftentimes, ADU does require a much beefier foundation, which I will let Hugh speak on that issue. And then the next thing is the existing unpermitted construction. So oftentimes the existing single family home, they always have illegal construction or unpermitted construction. Now the ADU law does allow you to convert those illegal structure and let you permit them. However, due to the way the construction method, during the inspection, they might ask you to open the walls and even ask you to redo most of the items. And then the last thing is the size limitation. For the size limitation, as good as it sounds, went up to 1,200 square feet, ADU is only allow you to do a single story. So the maximum you can have is only 1,200 square feet. Let's say if you have a big lot, you probably want to consider doing a second unit instead of ADU. So that way you can achieve a much bigger footprint and square footage of your house. Few recommendations I have is to set realistic budget and goal, because as easy as it sounds, ADU might not be that affordable. That's really depend on what you have to work with. I would recommend to find the right working partner, to find someone that's have a lot of experience would definitely help you save money for the long run. And you should always prepare for more, because when you're working with an existing building, there's always going to be surprises. The last two things is the neighbor relationship and the parking issue. So since they allow you to build almost up to a triplex, for a single family zone, a parking issue is definitely something that you should look at. Even they're not required, but that's have becoming some of the complaints from the neighbor for us. The next thing I want to share with you is a few example sets I've done in the past, and then I will run through you the things that I did with those sets. Okay, so this is what a full ADU set looks like. This is one of my own project. I proposed a detached ADU. So let me give you a rundown on the sets. So the main sets are architectural set, which covers the general information on your site, the Calgary requirement, and the site plans. And we also have to show the, so oftentimes, even when we're doing a detached ADU, we have to measure and show what's existing for the existing family. So that way they can see what's the layout. And then that's when you want to capture all the unpermitted construction. So this is the proposed floor plan, and this is the existing floor plan. And then as we go down, this is the Title 24. This is mandatory energy calculation report. That's mandatory by the California. It pretty much tells you what kind of insulation and what kind of window that you need to use. And then this is the structural set. Pretty much it tells you the foundation size, the roof size, the framing size. And then let me go back to this project. So on this project, just for example, I have an existing garage with an illegal second story addition. So since I want to maximize the square footage and I want to increase the overall ceiling height on this project, and also I will run into a fire rated wall because my building is sitting right next to the property line. I decided to remove this whole building and then propose a new building, which you can see I can maximize the 4 feet setback. And then note that we also require to have a 5 feet building separation between the ADU and the main house. So this is that detached. I would like to show you an ADU conversion. So for this project, the owner has a single family with an illegal unit in the back. So what we did is we propose a JADU for the illegal unit. Since the JADU require internal connection, a fire-rated assembly wall is not required. That's one way to save the cost for the owner. And then for the existing garage area, we converted to an ADU, so the owner are able to maximize the usage for her lot. And then the last project that I did is for the for multi-family ADUs. As you can see, the existing multifamily has 4 units, and then the owner are proposing 2 detached ADU and 1,000 square feet each. Let me show you the floor plan. So for 1,000 square feet, you can propose 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. So this is maxed out for her rental income. I think this concludes my my presentation. Thank you, guys.
Okay, great. Awesome. Let me go ahead and get back in gallery view. So next we have our engineer, Hugh Tavallali.
Tavallali, yeah. Hi, everyone. Good to be here. Thank you all. Great presentation, Eric. Lots of information, and even I usually cover the structural part. Your presentation was it was very informative. You mentioned a few things about the station. There is a conception that do we need a structural engineer?
Hugh, real quick, your video. Hugh, real quick, could you fix your video?
The answer is in most cases yes.
Hugh, can you fix?
Okay. Problem with the video?
Yeah. Okay, we're good to go now. Go for it.
Okay, we're good now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So going back again. So I often get this question that do you really need an engineer, a structural engineer for your ADU project? And the answer in most of the cases is yes. We have different type of ADU units as Eric described. So if you have a conversion, whether it's a multi-story or even a single family, you are making some changes to your existing system, to your existing building. So if it is a multi-story for usually like populated areas, for example, San Francisco, downtown Oakland, once you are making changes to add ADUs, to conversion to ADUs, you are often required to do seismic upgrade. And for doing the seismic retrofit or upgrade, you need an engineer. We had cases that the building had already gone through seismic upgrade, but as a result of conversion, we had this issue of elements that are being basically used for seismic upgrade being in the way of your unit, and then modifications were needed. So again, in that area, you need a structural engineer. Unless you are having a little box completely detached from your house and with lots of restrictions, we have a prescriptive method. And if you want just to have only 2 windows and a door with those restrictions, maybe you can get away without a structural engineer. But I would say it's an added value even for a detached unit, simple floor plan, because when you use an engineer, you are specifically designed for your site condition. That could be for the effect of the soil that you have, that could be the seismic loads, because when you are following prescriptive method, you are probably over-designed for some areas and under-designed for the others. While an engineer can bring this value that you are specifically designing for the requirements that you have in that area. And it also gives you the flexibility for extra architectural features. We had the small units detached, but with, for example, clear story windows. And doing that without an engineer, I think it's pretty if not impossible, pretty difficult. And later on, when you go to the building department, there is always a chance that you get questions and comments on the structure. And I had cases that people have already started the project and then getting back to us because they had problems with the building department review of the structural. So I think that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer questions.
Sure, no problem. Appreciate your time, Hugh. And so last but not least, we have Freddie Mac's chief appraiser, Scott Reuter. So Scott, go ahead. You have the floor.
Okay, I'll pull up my slide here. Hang on one sec.
And Scott, real quick too, I know we had this problem earlier. Is it possible to expand?
It is. Yeah. Hang on one sec.
Screen.
Slideshow.
We got a little bit of feedback earlier. And
Yep.
To our attendees.
You let me know how that is.
Let's see. Let's see. To our attendees, is this good? Can you see, or do you want to expand it further?
I think that's better.
Yeah, I'm in slideshow from the beginning, so that looks like as big as I can get it. So hopefully that does the trick.
Okay.
You getting any feedback, or you want me to jump in?
Let me see.
Let's jump in. I think that's good.
All right.
You think that's good?
Thanks, Ellen. Okay, perfect. We're good to go, Scott. Okay.
Thank you, Ellen, and Laura has spoken. So with that, I'll jump in. So many thanks, Justin, Laura, and the entire Greater East Bay chapter, and all of our friends at ARIA for inviting me here today. Also, a quick nod to my friend Tony Hutchinson, who thought of me for today's event. So I greatly appreciate that. Agenda items for today. First, I'd like to start by describing what an ADU is. Eric and you touched on it. I'm going to look and start pretty much the definition from our published guide. 1, 2, discuss the different types of ADUs you may see in the marketplace. Again, I'd like to cover then briefly zoning compliance and specifically how we at Freddie Mac view these and what requirements our guide outlines. 4, spend a little time on comparable sale selection along with the challenges that this presents. This is really the key to success from an appraisal perspective, so I may spend a minute or two here. And lastly, review some of the guide flexibilities that we've introduced to help both real estate professionals and appraisers alike. First, for me, a quick disclaimer, reminder that comments here today are my own. Any reference to Freddie Mac policy is intended to be accurate. That said, participants are always encouraged to reference our current published seller servicer guide with any questions or additional clarifications they may need regarding policy, purchase of sale of loans to Freddie Mac. So again, not to be redundant, Eric covered it, you covered it a bit, but what is an ADU? So definitionally from our published seller servicer guide, an ADU is defined as an additional living area to a 1-unit dwelling. That simple. It must include at least a kitchen, a bathroom, a separate entrance, and is independent, must be independent of the primary dwelling unit. So from a practical standpoint, it may be easy to confuse at times an ADU with a 2-family or a 2-unit property. The main difference between a 2-unit property and an ADU lies in the zoning and the land use requirements. Examples of ADUs include homes with a unit above a garage, dwelling with a detached guest apartment or a separate unit in the basement. Also, ADUs are typically subordinate or smaller in size to the main dwelling, and also is smaller in contributory value. And Eric touched on some of the restrictions that are common in California. Types of ADUs, so multiple types of single-family ADUs. This excludes the junior ADU and the multifamily ADU, but you'll typically see them attached to an existing 1-unit dwelling, detached or freestanding, which is very common with a detached garage that has some sort of conversion, or you will see them in many markets above or below an existing dwelling. As for zoning, they tend to come in 3 different flavors here, at least as our guide addresses ADUs. You'll typically see legal, you'll see legal non-conforming, or you will in some markets see illegal ADUs. And our guide actually speaks to all 3. And yes, we buy all 3 types of properties with ADUs. The difference lies in the amount of data and market documentation we require from the appraiser, resulting in more market demonstration and support needed in the cases of non-conforming and with cases of illegal zoning. So in terms of general market observations, over the last, I think 5 to 10 years, as both market demand and market recognition of ADUs has increased, this has become one of the top appraisal issues, both in continued questions we receive from appraisers, as well as our internal collateral policy review of our guide requirements. Since appraisers are on the front line of looking at the collateral and how it qualifies for the GSEs, and our guide sets forth requirements, and these are the elements that are to be met or addressed or updated, that we want to ensure we have continual alignment with what many markets nationwide are seeing and where many ADUs are becoming a real option. Some property qualifications as it relates to the collateral are not always terribly clear in the marketplace. And with ADUs and manufactured housing ADUs, et cetera, it's not always very clear or black and white. And in many markets, and due to the lack of comparable sales in some markets, the valuation can be a challenge. And many of you may have experienced this with projects you have either undertaken or have encountered. So in addition to the sheer issue of availability of data or lack of sales, in some markets, there's inconsistency in the way the ADU information is reported in the local MLS services. So if there's no standard or reliable way for an appraiser to research the market for comparable sale data, there at least exists a likelihood that something may get missed. So for example, there may be a great comparable sale that was entered into MLS in such a way that it was missed by an appraiser in his or her market search. Alternatively, an agent may have only mentioned it in the narrative description of the property that it had an ADU, and this may or may not get captured, again, depending on how the appraiser conducts their comparable sale search. Many appraisers typically are not text mining. They'll put in characteristics of size and various other things when they're searching for comparable sales. So that may, in fact, go missed. Lastly, there may be private sales that are not sold through MLS at all, in which case the appraiser needs to rely on how accurately the local county records reflect that transaction. So by the way, none of the aforementioned are really anyone's fault per se. They're just current symptoms of how and where the data may be hiding. It's also indicative of a potential opportunity to help standardize and improve MLS data and the reporting of ADUs, and to really help the entire market going forward. So this is where the rubber hits the road for appraisers in the comparable sales and comparable sales selection. So comparable sales and market support really are the key to the appraisal. And since we require the appraiser to justify and support their analysis and conclusions, the guide requirements are important for each particular type of ADU that's present in the marketplace. So as indicated on the slide, previously Freddie Mac required an appraisal to include at least one comparable sale with an accessory unit when the subject one unit property had a legal accessory unit. Based on seller feedback, we heard and we understand there's situations where comparable sales with an accessory unit are very limited. So to provide flexibility, we modified our requirement to provide alternatives for the appraiser to consider when a comparable sale with an accessory unit is not available. If a comparable sale with an accessory unit is not available in the subject neighborhood, the appraiser can use a comparable sale in the subject neighborhood without an accessory unit, as long as the appraiser can justify and support the use of such a comp in the appraisal. Additionally, to allow sellers to deliver a mortgage secured by a one-unit property with an accessory unit that does not comply with zoning and land use requirements, this is illegal zoning, we've added certain additional requirements. One, the site section of the appraisal report must indicate that the accessory unit does not comply with zoning, land use, or restrictions or requirements, i.e. illegal zoning. Two, at least two comparable sales with each having only one accessory unit must be included in the appraisal report. The accessory unit of each appraisal, of each comparable sale rather, must also be non-compliant with zoning and land use requirements to demonstrate the conformity and marketability of the subject property in its market area. The seller must confirm the existence of the accessory unit will not jeopardize future hazard insurance claims. So that's a mouthful, but the key takeaway is that we are the more restrictive or illegal from a zoning compliance, the higher the bar for the appraiser. So if you're engaging with an appraiser, you're engaging on a project. As an appraiser, I spent roughly the first half of my career in the field doing fee work. Candidly, I didn't bump into a lot of accessory dwelling units. Personally, I'm a big fan. I think they're a tremendous way to achieve some affordability and some additional housing alternatives in areas where land cost is incredibly high. But if you're involved in this and you engage an appraiser, please feel free. I will lobby on behalf of appraisers everywhere, even though they all may not react or behave this way, but please feel free to share information with your appraiser. If you take a project all the way to the end of the rainbow and you're meeting that appraiser on site, if you know of a comparable sale, if you know of some data in the area, it might even be a little aged, it may be very helpful to your appraiser. And even if it's redundant, even if it's something in MLS that you think, oh, the appraiser's got access to that, I was always open to, and I think a lot of my fellow appraisers are very open to information that you could share. So that's just a commercial plug for the the help me help you. But in addition to that, we've added the flexibility, allowing alternatives for appraisers in certain circumstances. So again, it doesn't have to be an exact match. The appraiser is our eyes in the field. He or she is really giving us a read on what's going on in the marketplace and understanding that there's always not uniform conformity. We've allowed these alternatives and some flexibility. One, two, we're continue to monitor and update our policy to ensure it's accurate and current with what's representative and going on in the markets nationwide. So I would say in closing, my final slide is really if you have any additional questions, there are additional resources and FAQs, our frequently asked questions. You can visit freddiemac.com/appraisers, and a lot of data resides there. And so hopefully, in addition to just some high-level guidance on our guide, which does change, please feel free to access that as an additional resource as you go forward. So Justin, and Laura, that's what I have in terms of prepared comments, and I look forward to Q&A.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much, Scott. Let's go ahead and get it back to gallery view. See, Scott, could you stop sharing? We'll
I need to stop sharing, don't I? There we go.
There you go. Perfect. All right. So home stretch. We're going to have a little bit of Q&A. Laura Tang is going to be conducting the question and answering. And for those that still have some questions, feel free to go ahead and put it on the Q&A section on the bottom right of your Zoom webinar portion. Laura, go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to first ask a few questions to the panelists, and then Justin going to help us to announce and ask the questions from the viewers. Okay, so question to Eric first. So I want to ask about the requirement. People want to do the ADU, and they want to know what is the requirement, like zoning, parking, setback. And I heard about Title 24, and you talk about the fire protection. And how about sound isolation?
Yes, so for the requirement, right, since ADU is a state law, but when they pass down to city level, each city actually have their own version of the ADU. So let's say in Oakland, they allow you to build up to 1,200, but in Hillsborough, they actually allow you to build to 1,400. And then but all of them have to follow this fire safety and the sound guideline. So let's say if we're converting a space, existing space, basement, for example, you will need to provide fire separation and sound, which require you to provide the STC 50, that's the sound level separation, and also,
Is that
you
the
know,
installation?
that's the insulation and also the sound channel. It's actually assembly from floor, subfloor, floor joists, insulation, and the sound channel and sheetrock. Together, they will make up for the requirement. That's for the residential.
Could you
How about
clarify
parking?
Title 24? My apologies.
Right. So Title 24 is a mandatory energy report by the California. So whenever you modify an existing home and do an additional, they want to make sure the modified area is at least compliant with today's code, which spell for the R value for the insulation and the insulation value for the windows and doors. This report is a very standard report, and it's a fairly low cost, ranging from 200 to 500. But it's mandatory when you're converting a existing non-habitable space or when you do an addition.
Yes, because a lot of people think that, hey, it's an add-on. We already have existing footage, and the drawing could be something very simple. And then because my husband is doing, with Eric's help, that we're doing our ADU drawing, and then we found out, no, it's not, because of the chapter Title 24, that the whole elevation drawing is required. So how do you say that? Is it a simple design, a simple plan, or something that you think is more deeper than most people expected?
So in terms of, let me give you an example, right? Let's say we're proposing a detached ADU in the back. So for the city, they want to use this chance to get some updates of what is on your lot. So oftentimes they require you to do an existing floor plan of your existing home, even we're not building or adding anything to the existing home. So that way they require you to do the floor plan, the elevation, the site plan. So they have the latest record of what's on your property. So that way, just for later use. So that's the reason why they're making the drawing a little bit more complicated. Right?
Okay, so now it sounds like people like open a can of worm. So will they go into other area of the house inspecting, or they just want to know based on the plan?
So
like, will they come check to see what you have before? Is it up to did you add anything in non-conforming in the past? Will that be a case?
So I get that question a lot because there's quite a bit of illegal construction happening here. So here's what I told my clients is, if you have an illegal addition that you done or you bought the house with, if you're applying for ADU with permit, you should be prepared to fix these things along with the permit. Because as a professional, right, when we measure your existing home, we cannot hide anything. So I always recommend my client, do a site visit and then let's find out what's there that's not legal, and then how much is to fix it, so that you should budget for it. Because there's always a chance that inspector want to say, hey, I want to check out over there and what's going on here, right?
Enforcement here.
Right, and then it become a snowball.
Okay.
Right.
How about is water, gas, electrical meter that is it require extra meters, or we can just use existing?
So like I say, right, ADU is very flexible. They allow you to tap into existing meters. But the problem we're having is oftentimes the existing meter are just too small. Let's say you only have a 60 amp or 100 amp electrical meter. It's not going to be enough to supply a 1,000 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath ADUs. So that's where you have to do the upgrade. And the main cost, right, is actually the water. So electrical and gas is fairly affordable. But when it comes to the water meter, they actually cost quite a bit of money to apply for a new water meter, because they need to increase the size to the street.
Okay, I want to cross that to Scott, because I'm the investor myself, and I am also the property management. And my full-time job is a realtor, so I sell. So do refer me business, but but that's on the side. I suggest people to have. I mean, if it's my ADU, I would add extra meter because that brings extra income and value to my house, and that also helps for rental purposes. But in the appraisal point of view, will that add a value to the house if there's an extra gas meter, extra water meter?
Yeah, I don't know that from a value standpoint, we'd have to demonstrate that in the market. So it may differ market to market. And then I would need to really see if our guide calls that out. I'm not sure if we call out the separate utilities. I don't believe it's a requirement.
Okay. All right. So last question to Eric, that when people come to you say, hey, you know, I want to do ADU, I want to add a value to my house, but I don't know what to do to it. So will you also help them design?
Yes, I do. That's actually what I do. So when a client come approach me, I always offer them two options. Either we can have an office meeting or we can have a site meeting. So that way I understand, you know, what they want to achieve and what's their budget. And then I always can set up a realistic, you know, size or what kind of project they can do for them.
Okay, sorry, one more question for Eric. Okay, so you mentioned that 1,200 square feet is the largest, okay? So we always have, hey, you know, I have a detached car garage. And it's existing footage and it's so big, and it may exceeding the allowance of the ADU. So can you get a variance to that?
It's actually, let's say when that space is legally exists, when you convert, I don't think you're under the 1,200 square footage limitation. It's only where you're proposing new areas.
Okay, so existing footprint is okay.
I think so.
Okay, all right. So question to Scott. So you mentioned that ADU must be independent of the primary unit. So what do you mean by that?
It's a good question. Independent in this situation refers to individual living units where each unit has its own separate entrance. So an accessory unit may share utilities and common walls with a primary unit, but they need their own separate dedicated independent ingress and egress, if you will. You can't go into a basement unit and then have a flight of stairs from the inside that comes down and opens into that area. And to your earlier question, were you looking to use the ADU, for instance, in your case, as a rental?
Yeah.
So if you were, that may actually have a little more appeal if those utilities are separate again, even though, to your question, we allow shared utilities, may have a little bit more appeal if you down the road want to continue to market that as having some market appeal as a rental if those utilities are separate.
Okay, so does Freddie Mac guidelines require that it must has a bedroom? Can it be a studio?
It can be a studio. We do not require a bedroom. It can be an efficiency unit or a studio unit. Must have a bathroom, does not need a bedroom.
Okay, so I think that you already mentioned the basement with a bedroom, kitchen is possible considered as ADU, right? And does it require the entrance? I think that's one of my questions, but you answered me that already.
Yeah, again, I think if it requires that separate dedicated entrance. It can't be accessed through the existing dwelling if it happens to be a below or basement unit you're converting.
Okay, all right. So the next question to Scott is from the realtor standpoint, okay? So now I have appraiser come to my subject property, okay? So how do you determine is non-conforming or it's conforming? And because back then, what we used to do is call a client and remove your stove
Right.
your kitchen stuff. So right, so we're trying to uh, do the right thing. Okay, so now with the ADU and zoning is not, Eric, zoning is not required, right?
So, well,
Zoning
plan.
requirement is exception, right?
Okay, so for ADU, right, when you submit for for building permit, and then they route it to planning to get a stamp, but you can skip the planning review process.
Okay, so back to Scott, that because, so you can't check zoning, does it allow ADU, because the California passed a law that every single family house you technically you allow. So as an appraiser, how do you determine is legal or not legal?
It's a good question. And these can turn into kind of complex assignments because the appraiser must check the existing current zoning and the land use requirements, period. California is a state, obviously, as you all know, they've passed statewide ADU legislation. Oregon, there's parts of Portland, up and down the coast, the West Coast, Chicago. There's a lot of areas nationwide that are doing this, state or city level, but then you also have local jurisdictions which may have additional overlays. They may say that's fine that the state said, but right here in Glendale, or you pick the city, they may have other little restrictions or hoops or requirements you need to so it's incumbent on the appraiser to know that. And the legal, non-conforming, and illegal were confounding to me when I first got into appraisal many years ago, because I thought, well, if they're not legal, that you can't do them. Well, sometimes the zoning and the compliance is catching up with trends, and I think that's likely what's happening in a lot of these markets. Is they're prevalent. It's why we have a higher bar from a valuation perspective if you're appraising and it's illegal zoning, but they're all throughout the market, then demonstrated in the market. So I don't know if that exactly addresses the question, but that's kind of the premise behind that guide and policy requirement.
Okay, all right. So last question to Scott is, as a homeowner, I want to do ADU. Besides the rental income, I want to add values to my house, so it worth more. Is it a special way to do the math that for the appraiser to apply the value to it compared to the one is no ADU, or just really there's no special requirement on that?
Yeah, there's no real special like requirement or little guideline you can follow in every single market. And I'm going to give you the answer, the appraiser answer, which everybody hates, and it depends. It does depend on which market you're in. And it tends to, I would think, follow the higher the land costs get, particularly out where you all live, and again, up in Portland and inner city Chicago, a lot of the areas where land costs are getting very high, it's just intuitive that it is going to add value. How much value, and depending on what your costs are, you engage somebody like Eric or somebody like you to really help you through that early part of the process. It's, to me personally, it's prudent to put a sharp pencil to it to really look at what your costs are going to be. You may even want to engage an appraiser beforehand. We do all kinds of proposed and as repaired and as improved work all day long. A good appraiser that knows their market, that specializes in these, can really be a good asset to let people know if the project is worth undertaking.
I see. Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
So to Hugh, so Eric mentioned that there's ADU, there's construction on the hillside, and that has to go through you, like you, engineer. So you want to talk about and what type of hillside that's require engineering?
Absolutely. So first of all, when you have like a hillside construction, you normally cannot build on a hillside, right? So you want to make a flat area. So you are involved with excavation to provide like a flat area for retaining that portion of the hill, because when you are excavating through a hill, you're kind of making it unstable. So to avoid the unstable condition, you need to have retaining walls, and the retaining walls are like a area that engineers need to design. Also, there are situations that you might have expansive soil, or you have a field that is not necessarily engineered. By engineered, it means that you might have a construction before and they just dumped, the previous excavation or even like the construction material and build a hill. That's not suitable for construction of a home. So you need to make sure you have sound soil that you can build your new building, which is ADU on that area.
I see. All right. So my experience is there's certain construction may not require engineer, but I would suggest to have a consultation with the engineer to avoid a lot of issue and situation along down the line. And engineer helped me save money, that there's things that I think that I have to do or I don't have to do, or a certain way.
Absolutely. Let me clarify a little bit. There are like some certain conditions that can be met that you can avoid an engineer. But as one of our partners, Robert, says, engineers are the inevitable devils, because down the line there is always something that comes up and you need an engineer to solve that problem. Even if you don't need an engineer, like what you said, it's always a good idea to consult. Eric is always very keen on that. Usually he comes to me, hey, Hugh, I have this new ADU that we are trying to help you on. Do you think we need an engineer on this project? And usually if it is like absolutely unnecessary and it can be avoided, that's what I tell him, that yeah, you can work this one without an engineer. And yep, if that decision is made early on and we review, what is being planned, it's going to help the owner later on, so to avoid potential problems.
Yes, for the real estate disclosure standpoint, okay, for my past transactions, my experiences, having a engineer write something up, put it together with your disclosure, it's always helped the buyer to understand and helps the buyer to feel better about the construction. So Hugh, would you provide that kind of letter upon request?
Yes, usually we can do that. Basically, we have situations where construction has been made. It's beyond the usual building inspections. So what we would inspect is like if the building is satisfying to the building codes, sound construction has been used. So you have good foundation, you have shear walls for seismic, sort of things that you might not necessarily get from a special inspector. Sometimes from an inspector, building inspector. Sometimes people encounter problems that they want to make a decision when buying a house, ADU as well, that there are portions of the structure that are cracking, or you have a foundation that is either sinking or you have heaving in some areas. That's another good area that an engineer can help you.
Awesome. So that concludes my questions. Back to you, Justin.
Sure, no problem. And for all our attendees, to be cognizant of time, I know right now it's 12 o'clock. We also want to address your questions as well. So we're going to try our best to address your questions as fast as possible. If you have to go, I understand. I put it on the chat group. If you have any questions top of mind, feel free to shoot me an email, and I will make sure that we can go ahead and follow up on that, okay? So let's go ahead and do some questions from the attendees. Is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath single-family home with a 1-bed, 1-bath ADU equal to a 3-bedroom, 2-bath single-family home, or is it more like a duplex?
So that's like, sounds like Eric and Scott, right? The appraiser point of view and the permits allowed. Yeah.
Feel free to go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so I actually answered the question earlier. Okay. So it won't be treated as a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It will still be a 2-bedroom, 1-bath single family with a 1-bedroom, 1-bath ADU. Okay,
awesome.
Yep, what Eric said, he's right. We would look at it the same way per our guide.
Okay.
What does sustainable ADU mean? Can you give an example? And does that cost more than a traditional ADU?
Eric?
Actually, I didn't see that question. Sustainable ADU.
You mean junior ADU?
Or
or
the way, yeah. So I saw a question they asked about a prefab versus on-site construction. Is that referring to that question?
Yeah, I think so. I know that's been trending. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I've been talking to a few actually prefab companies lately, and then it seems like their price is improving. But as for now, right, if you're building a flat on a, let's say on a flat lot, just building one ADU, I think on-site construction is still a little bit more affordable, but prefab will have a better quality and you can better control the time because they build it in the factory. They're being very selective on the material they use. And then when it comes, it's already fully assembled. And then all you need to do is, pour the foundation, mount it there, and then do the assemblies of the small stuff.
Okay. Question for Scott. Can you confirm that Freddie Mac will not make a loan on a single, on an SFR with 2 ADUs? Also, can you confirm that Freddie Mac will not loan on 2 to 4 units?
Yes, I can confirm that mortgage secured by a 1-unit property with more than one accessory dwelling unit is not eligible for purchase by Freddie Mac, and additionally, a 2 to 4 unit property with 1 or more accessory units is also not eligible.
Okay. Okay.
Can I
And
add a little bit that to Scott? So how do you determine that? Is that based on the kitchen? Because I know appraiser wouldn't check the permit record, right? So how do you, because junior ADU is attached to the house,
It can
right?
be nuanced.
And then if there's 2 back there, so it's supposed to be 3, can it look like 2 to you?
I think it will legitimately reveal itself to the appraiser if you go through, right? So I think if it is a single unit home with a 1-unit ADU, that's very clear. If you've got a junior ADU, or you may have an additional unit or some additional living area, it's going to be incumbent on the appraiser to determine really what that is. And then the dimensions and the variations of that are going to be based on whether it's attached, detached, freestanding, above or below.
Okay. Okay. So better not build more than 2.
all right. In California, a junior ADU, a JADU, can be configured where it shared the bath in the primary unit, a converted garage, for example. In that case, since there is no bathroom, then that wouldn't be considered an accessory unit for lending purposes. Is that correct?
Is that to Scott or to both Eric? I think to Eric, can and junior ADU without a bathroom?
Without a
Can it
bathroom.
be shared?
Yes, it can.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Right. But you have an internal access. That's the main requirement. It's kind of like an in-law unit.
Oh, okay. How about you,
Right.
Scott?
Yeah, and I didn't see, I'm not an expert, I didn't see in our guide junior ADUs called out, but I would think if it's common in the area and the appraiser values it consistent with what's happening in the market, then that would be certainly the way we would look at it.
Okay.
Okay. Last question that I saw. It's a very general question. What is the average cost per square foot for ADUs? I know it could vary, but is there a ballpark you like to say?
From the range?
Yeah, a range.
Right. I get that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost always the first question. So it really depends on what you're building, right? Where we can build an ADU in, let's say, in Oakland for investment purpose, everything minimum, that can cost you $200 per square foot. And we're building a pool house in, let's say, Hillsborough area, that can cost $500 to $600 a square foot. So it depends what's the purpose. I will always recommend the clients, go through the design first, and then, and through the design, you set your budget. So let's say if I'm just doing investment, just go with a sample one. We put all the kitchen, bathroom together, and we do a square box. So that way, that's the most affordable way of construction, right? Yeah. So 200 to 500. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, another question, Eric. So for the structure to be considered ADU, it is also 500, more than 500 square feet, and anything under it's considered a junior ADU. Just anything under is a junior ADU.
No, I think let me explain a little bit more. So ADU, right? Just think ADU as a separate unit. So there's no connection between ADU and the main house. But for JADU, it's an in-law unit inside your existing family home. So there's a connection. That's why you can share the bathroom together. And so yeah, think about it like this. That way it would be more clear. ADU is completely separate. There's no internal connection.
Okay. Scott, why is it not good to have a third ADU?
Sorry, why is it not good to have a third ADU?
Yeah.
I will not opine whether or not it's good to have a third ADU. It's just under current guide requirements and restrictions, we just don't. They're not eligible for sale. So that would be the main reason.
Okay.
Right.
So is Fannie Mae the same or just Freddie Mac?
Fannie, I can't speak to Fannie Mae. I don't know. I know Freddie Mac, we're restricted to 1 ADU per 1 unit dwelling.
Okay. Yeah.
Currently. So back to my comments, right? If they become more prevalent, if Eric goes crazy and gets busy designing them, and you does the engineering for them, and they become a thing in markets, then that's what we do. Is we would react to what's happening in the various markets where these are popular.
Yeah, I want to add on to this. So I think as of today, the maximum you can do is 1 ADU for single family home and two detached ADU for multi-family home.
I see. That's the distinction.
Yeah, I would say too, real quick, if I may, Laura, adding on, I think the more units you get, in my view, more away from the spirit of the ADU. The accessory dwelling unit is an accessory dwelling unit to a single family property. And it's intended to be, smaller than and have less contributory value, although it does contribute value. So the more you begin to get away from that, it just gets away from the spirit of the accessory dwelling unit.
Okay. All right. I know we're right around 12:10. Laura, any other final thoughts and anything else top of mind?
All good. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. And then to our panelists, any other final thoughts? If not, I can wrap this up.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, to our attendees, thank you so much for checking out our Zoom webinar event, ADU 101. In a couple weeks, the next thing that we have ahead for ARIA Greater East Bay is bingo night. So ARIA member appreciation. We'd love to see you guys virtually. Play a little bingo. We're going to have some raffle prizes as well. That is going to be on Thursday, August 20th from 5 to 7 o'clock. Any other questions for the ADUs that we didn't get to, please shoot me an email. I'll make sure that we can try to follow up with you guys. So Eric, Scott, Hugh, Laura, thank you so much for your time. Till next time, okay, guys?
I want to say a
Justin.
few words that ARIA Greater East Bay is mailing out and deliver our face masks to our members. So if you need some, it's great quality, please email Justin, and I believe he shared his email there.
Yep.
We will definitely make sure that is sent to you. And a big shout out to ARIA Greater East Bay. We are the chapter of the year out of the 41 chapters. Great job, Justin.
Congratulations.
Yeah, the strong team. Continue the great work. And then also, we can't do it without our annual sponsor. I want to thank you, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Bank of the West. Justin helped me that.
HSBC, Citibank, Chase. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Till next time. Thank you so much for your time. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.